All right, and that brings us to the headliner of the prelims. We got a nice lightweight bout here between a couple of grizzly vets, man. We got Michael Johnson on one side. We got Clay Guida on the other. Really looking forward to this one. So, Johnson comes in 19-16 record. And, man, this guy has seen it all. Yeah, he's 3-8 in his last 11. But, man, you look at some of those losses and some of those names, man. Khabib, Gaethje, Darren Elkins, Nate Diaz, the list goes on, man. Even if you look at some of his wins, he's beat Dustin Poirier, Andre Fili, Tony Ferguson. Man, don't sleep on this guy. I'm really looking forward to seeing him fight. We saw him back in May of 2020, took on Thiago Moses, didn't look the best in that one. So really looking forward to seeing what he brings towards the table for Clay Guida here. Clay on the flip side, or I like to call him Blanca from Street Fighter. He sports a
great comparison.
Man, that's exactly what I saw myself. He has power-ups too. So, this man, he sports a 35-20 record. My word, man. How have you had 55 fights already? What a beast.
Think about the combination of fights between the two of them, it's actually kind of insane.
Man, the roster, if you look at who these guys have fought, is just insane.
It's the entire UFC lightweight rotation. It's the entire...
Yes, for the last 15 years. Anybody who's anybody, these guys have fought. So, yeah, this one's going to be crazy.
Mostly Clay! Continue, my fault.
So, Blanca here, he's lost 3 of his last 4. But, that lone victory did end up being against BJ Penn in 2019. We know enough about BJ Penn here. Obviously, more on the tail end of his career, but, that was... most recently in June, he lost to Bobby Green, where, again, I believe he was dominated for the most part, So... Really looking forward to seeing both of these guys look to bounce back against each other. I know you're hyped about this one, man. Give me some info on this one.
Oh, yeah, because this guy can see me shaking the whole time. You guys can see me shaking the whole time. We all know why I did this, BJ. Heart goes out to you, man. We all love you. Please, BJ, get better. Please, BJ, get better. BJ, get better. Okay.
Shake it off.
All right. So Michael Johnson's actually one of my favorite fighters. Period. This dates back to 2010 because he's been technically a UFC fighter since his early 20s. His tough is one of the best ones ever. And Jonathan Brookings, who he lost to in the final, was actually considered one of the most highly touted prospects at the time. And you kind of mentioned, the more prime, where I still think at 34 years old, Michael Johnson is taking all of that experience now and probably I've watched a lot of the training. I've kept up with him. He seems to be really, really trying to take things to a next level. And with that level of experience, what can you really, expect? The little things I didn't like is even in the last fight, right? He was absolutely dominating. And unfortunately, he got locked in an ankle lock. I'm not talking about Ken Shamrock, type ankle lock, but it was some smooth, sneaky groundwork that just lost him a fight that he very much looked like he was winning. And going back to what you were saying, when you really look at some of these losses, Paul Sass, who was his first loss after the tough, this guy's still a 14-2 retired fighter who ended in Bellator, right? Miles Jury, Reza Madadi. You mentioned everybody else. Beneil Dariush, who's going to be fighting later. Nate Diaz, Khabib, Justin Gaethje, Darren Elkins is a great one because the guy is just such a gamer. And Josh Emmett, these are big names for me. And Josh Emmett, can we talk about this man basically recovering from an ACL right now after winning on a torn ACL against Shane Burgos, and not just winning, but landing that shot that he loves to land? I mean, it's just an insane story, right? So when you think about the mans that Michael Johnson is losing to, and even if you want to add that UFC, I think that tough is an example of a tough where those fights are basically UFC level fights, and I unfortunately not the same amount of rounds and that kind of thing, but his record is very misleading. I think it might be, in my opinion, the most misleading record in MMA. It's just like the men he has fought throughout his 20s. It's just like Max Holloway, except Max Holloway is your LeBron James of mixed martial arts. Like, what do you want me to say? You know, he's not going to win every title, but
he'll be there. Oh man, for sure. So, really pumped for this one. Michael Johnson, straight beast. Let's see what he can bring to Clay Guida here. Where do you see the line landing for this one?
Yeah, so Grizzly Vet, you said it best, right? Gas tank always will be the thing that Clay Guida is remembered for. I think that the overs and stuff like that are sprinkleable, but I think the lines just, I won't know what they look like. And frankly, he's just on that tail end, right? So I want to say Michael Johnson's a favorite. If I look at my current line, I think I've currently hyped myself up to change mine without even looking. I might have to increase this line, but I just love, like you said, the experience that Guida brings. But again, it's going to be wrestling. It's going to be, if he doesn't do much of the ground and pound with the wrestling, they're going to stand him up anyway. So it's like, when you even get those moments to be opportunistic, you got to use it. And I think that's where I've convinced myself to increase my line, because I think that Michael Johnson will actually be able to deal with a lot of what he brings, even from an offensive perspective. So let's say that Vegas knows this as well. So I'm going to increase my line by 20 points and go Michael Johnson minus 205.
Oh my goodness, man. Who is this man and where did Suki go? Holy shit. Man is just sniping these right now. So Michael Johnson opened at a minus 225 favorite. Wow. He's currently minus 220, right in line with kind of what you were saying there. Yeah, so well done. Let's give him another bell here. Let's give him a round of applause. Fantastic showing in the prelims. He's a minus 220. Any of these other lines you want to kind of explore before we move on from this one?
Well, yeah, let's see. I think Michael Johnson is an underrated wrestler, but I think that he also has to have kind of that wit about him, right? Like the constant pressure from Guida is what you have to deal with. So I kind of want to see what like the decision looks like. What are the points for Michael Johnson?
So Michael Johnson to win by decision is actually plus 140. He's very favored in that respect. The knockout is plus 220.
And that's with that's finished, right? Okay, beautiful. No, he's a crisp striker, man. Like I really like, because like let's be real. Like the guys he's beat are just, like they all bring that elite level striking to the table. And so on a given day, yes, we've seen the Michael Johnson version fight Justin Gaethje. We get it, but the Khabib one is a different level of wrestling. That was that example fight. If you remember, Khabib was very much talking to him, talking to Dana, like all that craziness. But it's just, this is probably I have to call this my favorite fight on the card. Like I have to. It's just, there's so much riding for Michael Johnson, and I think this is a fight for him to win. And like you said, with that line at the finish, I'd consider a sprinkle there, because I think he's going in very hungry.
Yeah, you can also take the fight not to go the distance at plus 137. Great odds there. If you want to take the under 2.5, it's plus 162. Under 1.5 is plus 275. So, some things for us to explore as the week approaches. But looks like we're going to be leaning Michael Johnson's way. The
few things we can probably lean, my man, is like the finish by Clay. I just think if he does win, he might not be able to get the back and kind of get that classic rear naked choke type old school finish, but he might be able to kind of keep the wrestling against the fence, avoid all these strikes and that kind of thing. So, when we have to analyze that, it's like if we sprinkle the Michael Johnson finish, sure. But I think the way you usually think with that whole points and the overs, stuff like that, like there's a little bit of value there, especially that minus 1.5, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Guida by decision is plus 275. So, stay tuned for that one. We'll be locking that in a little closer to Saturday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That wraps up UFC Vegas 18. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button underneath. We have all of our information, Instagram, Twitter. Give us a follow. That's where all our picks are going to go up. Closer to Saturday, we'll have a bunch of content going up. So make sure you give us that subscribe. Lock that in. Anything else, Siraj?
That is all, my friend. Always a pleasure. Glad to get it rolling again. Let's get it. With these lines, we better
Always a pleasure, dude. Take care. You got it. Peace out.